Welcome, welcome everybody. It's really nice to see you all here trying out this new way with us. Sad to not be able to be in person, but it's great to be together by our new way, which is Zoom. And this is our first speaker meeting to launch in this method. So I hope that you are all safe and warm, comfortable in your home tonight, and that you're just going to relax and enjoy this time we have together with our amazing NAMI Santa Cruz friends. So we sit back and we listen and we learn and we think about how are we doing with this new world of COVID-19. On April 5th, a few weeks ago, just into the life-altering changes we experience with sheltering in place and high anxiety skyrocketing for me and for everybody, I heard the radio show on KQSD, an interview with Deborah, Anastasia, and Kara, and it was called Mental Health First Aid for COVID-19. It was perfect for what I needed and what I thought we all needed. And it was kind of early in all, and there was Anastasia in her tent, and I was so proud of everybody trying to get on Zoom to help each other. So I found it to be relevant, informative, professional, helpful, focused, enjoyable, and then there was all these additional amazing resources that they referred to. So I asked these three ladies if they would help us out, share the interview, and do a question and answer time for us tonight. And I'm so grateful they said yes, and here we are now. So I just have a couple of announcements before we start the program. And the first one is going to come from Noelle Perez, our development director.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say I have an announcement to make. We reached our human race fundraising goal. Yay! Thank you to all those who made it possible. You truly make the difference for us, and we are so grateful for your generosity. Our future funding is not guaranteed, so each donation means a lot to us. If you would still like to donate, you still can by visiting our website at NAMI-SCC.org. Because of you, we can continue to provide all of our support groups for free on Zoom, and many more amazing things that NAMI is doing during this time. I do want to say thank you again to the Human Race team, to fundraisers, donors, to the Volunteer Center, and everyone who helped us reach our goal. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Noelle. Thank you. Yeah, Noelle's been just an incredible asset to us in getting our Spanish language programs off the ground and having really good attendance for the family support group, working on all the other Spanish language programs in addition to helping with us with emails and newsletters and general development. So welcome Noelle. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
Okay, next announcement is about Santa Cruz Behavioral Health. We want everybody to know that they're open, they're doing business, they want to see people. If you need a refill of medications, if you need to see your doctor, if you just want to talk to somebody, the Access team, Jen, Julie, Molly, they're there. I talked to them today and they said, please tell everyone we're here for them. Family members or peers, anybody. When you go up there in person, there's a tent outside. They'll take your temperature. You could talk to somebody there and then decide whether you want to stay outside for your conversation or go indoors. And then it'll be, if you're indoors, it'll be a telehealth conversation like we're doing right here with a clinician. Masks are required, but if you don't have them, they will provide. So phone calls are welcome from family members. Their number is 800-952-2335. And then, of course, the last announcement is that all our NAMI support groups are up and running. Anastasia got them going. We never missed a beat. So check them out. They're really fun. People love them. It's just as good as going in person in a lot of ways. You don't have to go out and get dressed and drive in the cold. It's kind of fun. And okay, so now I'm just really excited to introduce to you Debra Sloss. Deborah is a wonderful, wonderful friend, mom, NAMI mom, who has been through a lot of the same things that many of us have, learned so much, and she's a local psychotherapist. She participated in a lot of NAMI things and as a volunteer, and she's, for the last year or so, the host of this awesome radio program on KSQD 90.7 FM. She took this on. It's called State of Mind, and she takes on all kinds of topics of interest to us, to NAMI people. So I want to thank her for hosting tonight, and give a big welcome to Deborah and her team.
Thank you so much. I'm a little blown away that so many people are showing up. I'm really excited to be with you all and not only share the conversation that we had on the radio show, but also hopefully hear some of what you all are learning too as we all navigate this new world together. I want to tell you a little bit about what to expect from the program tonight. So we're going to start out by streaming the actual radio show as it was recorded back. It was recorded on March 20th, I think. I'm pretty sure March 20th. So it was literally in the very first week of shelter in place, and it aired a week or two later. So we're going to play that. It's 58 minutes, and then we're going to have a question and answer period and or discussion, depending on how many people want to participate in that, with myself and the other guests on the show who I'm going to introduce in a moment. And then at the very end, we're going to have a very short but actual mindfulness practice together, because as you'll hear in the show, those practices can be really helpful to us in navigating periods of high anxiety. So, and then we'll wrap up. We'll definitely wrap up by 8:15. We started at 6:30 and hoping to wrap up by 8:15. So let me tell you a little bit about the State of Mind radio show and the podcast. They were inspired directly from my involvement in NAMI as being a volunteer with them. As Carol said, I'm the mother of a young adult son who has had mental health challenges his whole life. But they became really serious when he was an adolescent. So during my various involvements with NAMI, what really became clear to me is the incredible power of the personal story of lived experience, and how much wisdom, hard-earned wisdom, is included in those stories. And I thought it was so important that people outside of just mental health communities hear those stories, and the chance to share them with other people more broadly. And so out of that, that's how State of Mind was born. I really wanted to get it into a forum where people might stumble across it instead of it being something that they look for, and that's why the radio broadcast is really important to us. And then also, the podcasts are available ongoing for people. And I've heard from some folks around the country even that, you know, say there's a show on a specific topic like ADHD, and they might send it to a family member or something as a first introduction to some information about that topic. So having the show in the two formats, I hope is really helping to kind of further our mission, and I'll talk more about the mission in a minute. All the shows feature one person who shares their direct personal experience of lived experience, and then paired with them is someone with expertise in that particular topic area. They might be a clinical professional, or they might be somebody who has like program expertise. And every single show has a resource list that's posted with the show that are resources that are specifically recommended by those guests. So there are resources that they're actively, we've all gotten resource lists that are not helpful or useful. And these are resources that very specifically are being used by the people who are on the show and recommending those. The mission of the show is threefold: to educate the public about mental health and to normalize and humanize these experiences, thereby reducing stigma. And lastly, to help improve access to resources. Does that sound familiar to anyone? I mean, anyone involved in NAMI would know that, you know, it's very much in line with NAMI's mission, which is to support, educate, and advocate. So I really have to credit NAMI and the inspiration and my experiences there with leading me to this particular mission, I would say. I really feel like I'm on a mission to make these shows and help these voices be heard, these stories and voices be heard. And also the last thing that we're really committed to is offering models of hope and recovery. So the stories aren't all neatly packaged or wrapped up, or, you know, things can be messy in someone's life, but just having that seed of hope that things can get better, that there are paths to recovery and what that might look like. Those are things that we look for in our shows. The shows air once a month on the first Sunday of the month on 90.7 FM, KSQD, and they're also available live streaming at ksqd.org, or they're available on iTunes or Google Play, well, Google Podcasts, which was formerly Google Play Music. It's changing over. I would just say that many of our guests are just regular folks, just like you, living and working in this community. And so I want to invite any of you that are listening tonight that if you have a story or a topic that you think is really important that we might want to cover, please get in touch with me. I think that my contact information is going to be posted while the audio is playing, so you can get it there. So why we made this show? In the very first week of COVID, it was really clear that it was going to hit people with pre-existing mental health conditions hard and fast. And I was seeing that in my own life in terms of seeing how my son was responding when his entire life collapsed. Everything, he had made a really good life for himself, relying on a lot of external structures, and all of those disappeared overnight. And so that was really apparent that, you know, some extra support for people already with pre-existing mental health conditions was needed, and that's what motivated us. I do have to credit one of my colleagues, Jennifer Young, who works on the radio show with me, as being the one who said, let's do this. She was the initial energy behind it to pull that together in such a short amount of time, and I am very grateful to her for doing that.
It looks like she's here.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Jen.
No, it's a different it's the other Jennifer Young, believe it or not.
Oh, okay. Also, within that week, I was seeing it in my clients. They were feeling overwhelmed, anxious, depressed, unmotivated. Many of my students were having a terrible time getting motivated to do their schoolwork, and many of them were feeling inadequately supported. So as Carol mentioned, the show is called, you know, First Aid for COVID, and very much this was like a first aid kit. I mean, we were thinking, what can we do to kind of address this issue immediately? And it was seen as like preliminary relief. But now we are 9 weeks into it, and with not really a clear foreseeable ending of when things are going to be significantly different. And so I think it is time for us to revisit and rethink, what does it mean to like live in this new normal, and how do we take care of ourselves as we do that? So we're hoping that after that we broadcast the show, that's where we'll start to take the conversation, is, you know, what is the adjustment now that we need to make in order to take care of ourselves, not knowing when this might change. And I want to introduce the two guests that are on the radio show, both wonderful guests who came back tonight to do this again. Cara Bowman is a licensed marriage and family therapist locally, and Santa Cruz's very own Anastasia Baboulevitch, who is a program manager. And I'm going to introduce them in more depth within the audio for the radio show. So that all I would say is just thank you again for coming back and furthering this conversation. I just want to suggest to people when we get ready to start the audio is that you think about it, grab a pen and paper, and if there are questions that arise for you or thoughts that you want to share as you're listening, jot them down. And then at the end of the audio, we will have a question and answer period. And I think with a group this big, we'll probably end up using the chat box as a way to post your questions. And Noelle is going to monitor and offer up those questions to us. And I think that's it. I just turn it over to Anastasia now to play the audio, and we'll see you on the other side, so to speak.
All right, just bear with me one quick second while I share my screen. I'm going to mute everyone right now, so if you have something you urgently need to say, you can always unmute yourself, but as of now, everyone is muted, and I'm going to start the show. Enjoy. I'm sorry, I forgot to check a very important box, so give me 1 second. There we go. Okay. And let me know if this is too loud or you can't hear it for whatever reason. Otherwise, I'm just going to go right ahead.
Welcome to State of Mind, Being Human and Living Well, broadcasting on KSQD Santa Cruz 90.7 FM and live streaming at ksqd.org. I'm your host, Deborah Sloss, licensed marriage and family therapist. At the time of this recording, a Santa Cruz County shelter-in-place order was issued for 3 weeks to combat the COVID-19 virus now affecting our local area, our nation, and the world. Last night, California Governor Gavin Newsom issued another shelter-in-place order that applies to the entire state of California, affecting more than 40 million people. These orders ask people to remain at home unless they have essential reasons for going out. This is a situation we have never seen before, and it is negatively affecting and increasing stress and anxiety in every one of us. But for those living with underlying mental health conditions, this situation is particularly impactful and possibly life-threatening. For that reason, we put together this show in a whirlwind of effort to bring you mental health first aid for COVID-19. While creating this show, we were thinking about the special needs of some of our most vulnerable community members, those who are already living with mental health conditions and their families. However, we're going to share things with you that you can do and resources that help us all build resilience and help us maintain better mental health through these difficult times. This show is for those living with mental health challenges, but also for anyone who loves and cares for them, or who wants to take better care of your own mental health in order to navigate the challenges we are facing right now. I'm going to ask for some lenience from our listeners because the recording quality in this show may be a bit rough at times, and you will hear some background noises since we're recording out of the studio and connecting with all of our guests remotely using the technology that we were able to get our hands on in just a couple of days. So stay with us and learn more about how to take care of your own mental health and support the wellness of your loved ones. With me today to discuss these topics are Anastasia Baboulevitch, a program manager with the National Alliance on Mental Illness here in Santa Cruz County. It's also known as NAMI. Anastasia is extremely passionate about working in the mental health field because of her own experiences with mental illness. Anastasia's diagnosis of bipolar disorder at age 16 inspired her interest in mental health care, its history, and the politics that surround it. She graduated from the University of California, Santa Cruz with a BA in psychology in 2016 and has since worked with local mental health organizations such as Second Story and MHCAN. Anastasia deeply values empowerment, hope, and equality for all and works for a world where mental health conditions are widely accepted, understood, and treated with dignity. Also with me today is Kara Bowman, a marriage and family therapist in Scotts Valley who specializes in grief and trauma. Kara is a certified clinical trauma professional who responds to mental health needs following crisis in the community. She also volunteers for Hospice of Santa Cruz County. Kara was a guest on our show about a year ago on the show discussing suicide and grief. Welcome. We're so happy to have you back, Kara, and welcome to you, Anastasia.
Thank you.
So we have our work cut out for us today, trying to talk about, what would help people during these difficult times. And I do like to usually start with a personal story in our shows. So Anastasia, are you willing to talk about, what you are finding particularly challenging in terms of your mental health right now and what you're doing to help and support yourself?
Sure, I'd be glad to start. So I've been really thinking about two things that have been impacting my mental health with this whole weirdness that's been going on. And one of those is my main stress reliever / maintainer of my mental health is my yoga practice. So exercise has been really important for me in managing depression and anxiety and getting a community to get connected to. So, and that's kind of my accountability is, it's kind of hard to exercise at home. So it's been really hard to not have that community in place. So honestly, this week I have not exercised at all. And I've definitely noticed my symptoms of anxiety and depression increasing. So it's something that, I'm going to have to find a whole new thing, maybe find an online community, yoga community, because it's very different to just kind of work out by yourself. There, you don't kind of quite have that much, accountability again and inspiration to do your best. Mm-hmm. So that has been very difficult for me. And then the other thing is with myself, and I know a lot of other peers that I've been talking to, a lot of our default states is to actually just stay at home and not talk to anybody, especially when we're not doing very well. We just want to kind of isolate. Now it's mandatory. So it's really easy to just be like, you know what? No, I'm not talking to anyone. I don't need to talk to anybody. So I've been really having to stay accountable to, I'm texting my mom every other day because I know she's worried. I have to set up, my call with my best friend. Just really, a lot of things are changing, and I'm noticing that my coping skills that I've worked so hard to build over these past couple of years are going to look very, very different in the next however long we're going to have to do this. So I'm still, if anyone out there is like, how do you do it? I'm also still in the process of adjusting. So I think we'll figure it out together as the systems around us change as well.
Well, I'm so glad you said that, because I noticed, as I was collecting resources for the show, that I too am reading things and thinking, I really need to do that. That would really help me right now. So I do think that we're all in this together and figuring it out. I appreciate you saying that. And also what you were saying about how staying at home can be a trigger. And I'm wondering if you're feeling like old patterns, like the seeds of those old patterns getting stimulated by staying home, because structure and routine is a lot of times what will help support us in our lives.
100%. I mean, even with my work, which is a big, for me, it's something I love to do and something that adds a lot of structure to my day and my week. It's changing, and I'm just sitting at the computer all day at home, not interacting with people, which is something that, a skill I need to keep sharp. Otherwise, I'm just going to not do it. Because again, that's kind of what my brain's default state is. So it's been really, really difficult with the structure kind of the rug getting pulled out from underneath me.
Yeah. And so have you taken any steps yet to adapt? You said about talking to your mom, like, do you actually talk to her just on the phone, or do you try to use video at all, or what are you doing to adapt to that?
Yeah, we do talk on the phone. That's something we pretty regularly do because she lives far away from me anyway. One thing that has been super helpful and just a huge highlight in my week has been Zoom calls with the peer support group facilitators that I work with, because we're trying right now to move all of the NAMI programs to a remote option like Zoom. And we've been having these Zoom meetings that have been so much fun. Like, it's such a different experience than being on the phone with somebody, because you get to see their faces, and it's kind of this cool new futuristic thing that we're all doing together. And we all kind of thought that it wasn't really going to work, or we were all going to hate it. But I think it's been, of course it's not a one-to-one replacement for seeing somebody, really being with someone in person, but it's been something that's been huge. And I've heard from a lot of them, and feeling for myself too, that it makes us feel a lot less isolated, and like, oh, you're in your homes too, and you're doing this, like we're together. It's not just me feeling weird over here.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Are you hearing any other things from other peers as you talk to them about what their particular needs or challenges are right now? When I refer to peers, I want our listeners to know what peers is a word meaning those who are living with mental illness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have been definitely hearing a lot of this thing that I've been experiencing of just being really sucked into that social isolation. And actually, I recently read an article that kind of talked about how social distancing doesn't actually have to mean social isolation, but that's what a lot of us are kind of reverting to. With my call with the peer support group facilitators, a lot of them were saying, oh, this is just what my life is. It's just now mandatory. So that's been a big theme. And then, of course, the collective stress, collective anxiety. It is, I've heard from a lot of people, it's been ramping up a lot of our symptoms. So that's definitely been a big, feeling the collective stress has been a big impact, I think, on a lot of us.
Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know if you're finding this at all, or maybe Kara, you'd like to comment on this, but as I've been meeting with my clients this week, it's been really interesting that some of the clients who have dealt with anxiety for a long time have a really big toolkit that they're reaching into right now, and they've already sort of used and practiced those tools. And for some of them, they're actually doing a little better than some of my clients who maybe are coming to counseling for other reasons, not necessarily underlying mental health reasons, because they kind of know I have to do these things. So they were quicker to adapt and start to go back to those coping skills that they already know really well. So that's been an interesting observation. I'm wondering that I've been having. I'm wondering if you're noticing that at all for yourself or for the peers that you're talking to.
Sure. I've seen a very wide variety of reactions, and I think you're right that some people have more tools and they've practiced tools, so they kind of know what to pull out of their toolkit. Isolation can cause increased anxiety and depression within days in people without pre-existing mental health conditions. So that's, I think, even more pronounced with people who have either a mental health condition, or they may have had a previous condition such as PTSD that they've worked through, which might resurface at this time. So anytime the world changes suddenly, it's a stressor, and that can cause old patterns. And so the old patterns may be a mental illness, or it may be just unhelpful coping mechanisms, or it may actually be a trauma reaction. So many different things can come up. And so that's the side of the equation that is how people are responding. And then there's the other side of the equation, which is what tools do they have to bring to the situation. You're right that many people have a bigger toolkit if they've worked on this for years. And some of those tools that work in normal times don't work in these times. And so some people need to expand their toolkit.
Everyone needs to expand their toolkit.
Good point. Good point. Everyone needs to expand their toolkit, but they also need to be self-connected enough in order to see, are the things that normally support me supporting me now? Do I need to make some adjustments? Do I need to add some things in? And so that has to do with trying things, observing the reaction, and correcting. along the way. So I consider this kind of a big experiment, and I really hope people don't panic if they're having difficult reactions, but just use that as information to go forward and see how they can better support themselves.
So I really do hear that you're also trying to make sure people know that it's pretty normal to have a resurgence of symptoms right now, and not to panic about that too, right?
Absolutely. It makes total sense, because when our brain is under stress, it returns to well-worn pathways that it's used in the past to deal with stress. And so it may go there first.
Great. Okay. Anastasia, did you have anything to add about that?
Yeah, I guess just one thing that's coming up and has been giving me a lot of comfort is I think anything anybody is experiencing right now is pretty normal, because we're in such an abnormal time. And I've, just like you guys, I've seen such diverse reactions. Like this past week, up until maybe today and yesterday, I was very zen and very like, everything's okay. And then it all just came and hit me. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh gosh, I'm having more anxiety than I've had in a long time. Then, you know, a few days ago when I had that Zoom call, I was just so exhilarated, so happy to have these moments of connectedness in this weird time. So I think anything from like overwhelm to stress to symptoms returning to, you know, joy and depression, I think all those right now are okay to feel, because we are in a very strange time that is, you know, it's strange at least, if not traumatic for a lot of us, or if not all of us.
You're tuned to listener-supported 90.7 FM KSQD Santa Cruz, KSQD, many voices, one station, and this is State of Mind, being human and living well. I'm your host, Deborah Sloss, and I'm here talking with guests, NAMI Santa Cruz Program Manager Anastasia Baboulevitch and licensed psychotherapist and trauma specialist Kara Bowman, and we're discussing mental health first aid for COVID-19, special considerations and the needs for those already living with mental health conditions, and ways to take care of yourself and loved ones during these difficult shelter-in-place orders. I wanted to remind folks that all the resources we're talking about today can be found posted at the resource list on the page for this specific show, and that can be found at ksqd.org/state-of-mind/. And now a word from our underwriter.
KSQD thanks Family Service Agency of the Central Coast for supporting this program. Family Service Agency provides counseling and support for people of all ages facing life crises and challenges. You can reach them at 423-9444 to see if they can help you. Thank you, Family Service Agency of the Central Coast, for supporting KSQD 90.7 FM.
Back to our interview. So I want to take a minute to talk about structure, because that is one thing that I was noticing this week, having lots of conversations about with my clients. And so, Kara, would you like to say something about the importance of creating and maintaining structure as a way to support mental health right now?
Sure. Structure, there's a lot of research reaching back for decades showing that structure supports mental health, especially in people with mental health challenges, but in all of us, really. We want predictability, we want meaning, and it's more important now than ever. So what that means in terms of these new times is making a new structure. Your old one has fallen apart, and you need to be proactive about making a new one. So I would really think about that word. If you're not proactive, then you're going to be reactive. And so in order to support yourself in the best way possible, you want to be proactive about getting things in on a daily basis, such as physical activity, mental activity that's rewarding, connection with other people, and emotional relaxation. So those are some of the baselines that you want to get in on a daily basis. And then I think that structure is empowering. And it also can create good habits. There's one silver lining, it's kind of a booby prize from all this, which is there's a concept called post-traumatic growth, which means in a stressful situation, you can actually create habits more easily than in a normal non-stressful situation. So you've got this opportunity to repeat new habits on a daily basis, and you can actually come out of this situation in a better space than you went into it if you're proactive about how you structure your day. I would really want people to think about when they're putting things in their day, not how they're going to feel while they're doing the activity, but how they're going to feel at the end of it when they're done. So maybe if you watched a movie, you'll feel good when you're done. Maybe if you watch 3 movies, you won't. Maybe if you reach for alcohol, it'll feel good while you're doing it, but not so much when you're done. So that's a good litmus test for whether an activity is feeding you or is supporting you or not supporting you, draining you.
Yeah. So can we talk about just really some of the on-the-ground practicalities of that? For instance, many of the health practitioners, myself included, have gone to using video platforms this week. So one of the things that has come up repeatedly in my week is my clients being in their pajamas at no matter what time of day that I was meeting with them. And so as we talked about structure, we really talked about how does it feel to not get dressed all day, or how would it feel different to get dressed? And so that, just as a very simple practical thing, some of my clients were agreeing to get, save the pajamas for the weekends and get dressed during the week. So do you have any other sort of pragmatic, maybe Anastasia, you might be going through some things like that. Do you have any sort of practical examples of what putting structure into place looks like for you?
First of all, I confess I am in pajamas as we speak. And I also confess that it doesn't feel great. When I woke up, I was like, oh, I could just be in pajamas all day. It felt awesome. But as the day goes on, it's like, oh gosh, I haven't done anything all day. So thank you for that. That's actually a really helpful tidbit. I was really excited to talk to 2 therapists today. Yes, I win. Yes, I really am glad you brought up the topic of structure, because that's been something that's really been important in my mental health journey. It's been a really slow process to get to the point of having structure in my life and in my days. So I would say number 1 for me was really important to start slow. So start really, really small and not just thinking, okay, all of a sudden I have to go from doing nothing all day, sleeping all day, to now I have to eat super healthy. I have to work out every day, and I have to call my friends every day, and I have to meditate, and I have to read, and all these things. So what was really important for me was, I think I started, again, going back to my yoga practice, which has been really important in adding a lot of things to my life, including structure. I just, had the little yoga schedule that I had with me, and I was like, okay, 4 p.m. I'll go once a week to that 4 p.m. class for this next month. I'll just try once a week. And kind of that increased. The more that I did it, the better it felt, and it kind of built on itself. So that to me is really important, to not just pile everything on all at once, but just start with a really, really small thing that I could do. So I will say for myself, right now I'm trying to get a little bit of exercise in my days, and that has not been working out for me this week. So I'm kind of making this promise to myself of half an hour every single day, something small. So even just taking a walk, I'm going to count it. Even, walking around my house for half an hour, I'm going to count it. Doing yoga stretches outside for half an hour, I'm going to count it. So that's been really important. The other thing that's really helped me in structure has been rewarding myself. So after I do something, even something silly like a sticker, or a snack, or watching a TV show for half an hour, really does something to the brain, I think. Again, I've been using the sticker system, and have been really shocked by how well it works, of just giving myself a little gold star in my journals. And that it really releases something in my brain. You guys probably know more about the chemistry there, but it's been very important to me to feel like, okay, to kind of build on that reward system that happens after I do something that I know is good for me. And then the third thing I wanted to mention,
to yourself, really good job. Even just like that sort of thing of us pausing and acknowledging that you did a good job and, you know, following through on that thing you were intending to try to do.
And it's very nice to make a structure, make some goals, and check in with a friend. So that becomes connecting as well, and accountability. So you can check in daily. How many of your goals did you meet? You can check in weekly. And it's another way to support yourself. I don't want people to think of structure as a whole bunch of tasks you don't want to do that you should do. I really appreciate what you said, Anastasia, because I like the way when you weren't doing things, you had curiosity about it rather than beating yourself up. And you said, well, how can I make this work for me? How can I readjust? And rather than doubling down on a strategy that wasn't working. So I think structure can also give us permission. If you give yourself permission to lay in bed for 2 hours every afternoon in your pajamas, then it's part of your structure, and it doesn't become something you're doing that's, quote, wrong, unquote, but something that's relaxing. So structure doesn't have to be, you know, always difficult tasks. It can also be fun things or relaxing things, connecting things. And it can be a time that we have permission to do things that we normally don't give ourselves permission to do. And that can be freeing too. So structure simply, to me, means doing things that support our mental health rather than drain our mental health. So you're your own yardstick of that for your own self, your own brain, your own body.
And we have something built in, I don't know what it is, that we all need structures in our life, all kinds of structures, whatever they are, you know, whether they're our work or our play or our relaxation, ways to support that we do those things, whether it's like a book group that we go to or, you know, a dinner party that we have with people or, but there is something I know I've observed in others and also in myself is that while we need structure, there's something in us that loves to hate it, that pushes against it. And at times of stress, it particularly abandons it. I'm not so sure I can say that I understand what that thing is, but I just wanted to normalize that there's this funny relationship. I think people are constantly sort of striving to create structures that work for them and abandoning them and then coming back to them again.
We have a very strong need for autonomy, but let me play with it a little bit. What if part of your structure was, I'm going to stay in bed for 1 hour after I wake up? Then all of a sudden, that's not a shameful, depressing thing, but that's a supportive thing.
Right.
So we think of structure as this Calvinistic must-work way, and I'd like to think of structure as supporting us rather than something that we're doing to ourselves.
Right. I love the word scaffolding because that is more like something that actually builds you up than, so that's a word I like to use a lot.
But back in reality times when everything was okay.
That's a good reference.
What was really important to me was actually to have flexibility within my structure. So what I did was I know that I need yoga in my week at least 3 times. If, you know, more is always better. But I'll say, you know, after work for 3 times a week, I will go to yoga. The other days of the week, I can do whatever I want. I could go home, take a nap, do whatever. And I didn't kind of marry myself to any days of the week that I was going to yoga or going to go home and relax or do anything else that I wanted to do. And that was really important for me personally, because I really need a lot of flexibility. Otherwise I feel very rigid and very stuck and not productive. So having some flexibility within that is really important. And I also want to add that there's so many, all organizations that are trying to keep afloat are moving their programs to remote options. So I know that there's been a lot of yoga teachers that have been doing live streams. I know there's actually a resource that I thought of, Deborah, that I haven't given to you yet. It's called the Mighty. It's like a mental health forum, and they're doing classes. I will definitely send you the link. So you can put it
And
on
we will
wherever.
make sure that gets posted on the resource list that we're going to talk about later.
Great. And so it's, first of all, it's a mental health forum. It's online. It's just where you can share what's going on and hear other people's stories. And they're doing online classes. They're doing several a day, every single day. And then, so there's just a lot of ways to still keep that structure and community right now, because I think now more than ever, people are really trying to get their programs accessible via internet.
Yeah, some of the other things I've heard, just everything is going online, but meetups are going online. So if you've never tried those before, this would be a good time to start. Book clubs, 12-step groups. Those are a few of the things that are going online.
Great. Before we go to break, I have a poem by Kitty O'Meara, which is also attributed to Irene Vella in the original Italian version. And people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being and were still and listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows, and the people began to think differently. And the people healed. And, in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed, and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses, and made new choices, and dreamed new images, and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully, as they had been healed. A poem by Kitty O'Meara, and you can find more poems inspired by our current conditions in the pandemic on a resource list posted on the page for this show at ksqd.org. And now for our station break. You're tuned to listener-supported 90.7 FM KSQD K-Squid, and this is State of Mind, being human and living well. We're also live streaming over the web at ksqd.org. I'm your host, Deborah Sloss, and I'm here talking with guests, NAMI Santa Cruz Program Manager Anastasia Baboulevitch, and licensed psychotherapist and trauma specialist, Kara Bowman, and we're discussing mental health first aid for COVID-19, special considerations and needs for those already living with mental health conditions, and the ways to take care of yourself and loved ones. Back to our interview. So we were just wrapping up that conversation about structure, and I think, Anastasia, you brought up earlier the importance of managing anxiety and stress right now, both your own and the collective sort of anxiety and stress the soup that everyone is sort of living in right now. And I wanted to ask, are there specific things that you're thinking about or doing yourself to help with that?
Yes, absolutely. Something that has been very steady and the most accessible thing in my toolbox has been mindfulness practice. That plays into I actually just read a really great article about coping with depression and anxiety where somebody mentioned kind of their general principles being awareness, acceptance, and active change. They call it the 3 A's in terms of coping skills. So mindfulness embodies all 3 for me. So just being aware of what's going on in my head, what's going through my thoughts, paying attention to my body sensations has been really important. So like right now, I feel like my neck has been tensed up for the past week. So I know that, there's that I'm feeling stressed out, and I know I have my tools to be able to deal with that, which is where that active change kind of comes in. I know that if I want to feel better, I have to do something about that and not just sit with it and not do the same things that have been, causing what's been going on. So mindfulness has been really important, even just 5 minutes a day, putting on a YouTube meditation video or just 5 minutes of gentle music and just sitting and taking deep breaths, really paying attention to my breath has been really important in my days, especially now where everything kind of feels very fast and also very slow at the same time. So checking in with myself as regularly as possible has been really important. And also I'm really lucky to have some really wonderful loved ones around me. So my family members, my partner, and my best friends, they've been all really important to just check in with and just vent a little bit. I know everybody's talking about this coronavirus thing that's happening, and it feels kind of exhausting sometimes, but it's also really important, I think, to let out whatever you're feeling, whatever's going on with somebody that you trust and love, and it's been really important for me to feel like I'm not alone in this weird thing that's going on.
Yeah. So I love the way you describe mindfulness, because sometimes people react to that, but really what you were saying is mindfulness is just practicing slowing down and breathing and being right here, right now, as basic as that, right?
Exactly. It does not have to be a formal meditation. I think formal meditation, a guided meditation on YouTube can really help to get you into that space. But if that's something that doesn't work for you or you're averse to, just sitting down and really, saying, what am I feeling right now? What am I thinking? What am I seeing? What am I hearing? And getting down to the present moment can feel really grounding and peaceful in these chaotic times.
Kara, do you want to share about why, because you work a lot with people with, trauma and stress, and and I know you use a lot of mindfulness practices. Could you talk a little bit about why those are helpful and how people could access those?
Certainly. So under stress, our body is putting out stress hormones, noradrenaline, adrenaline, cortisol, and such, and that can cause us to have thoughts that causes more stress hormones, and it can be a looping cycle. So mindfulness practices can break that cycle and get us out of the threat system and into the soothing system in our bodies in a very physical way. So I don't like people to think of mindfulness as something they're doing. I like them to think of it as not a task that they can go through the steps, but they actually have to check in and see whether they're having a physiological relaxation, because there's no point in doing it if you're not having the physiological relaxation. And people can feel that in their bodies when they feel at peace. And so what research has shown is that times of stress are not a really good time to start a meditation practice, a silent meditation practice, or because unless you've already had one in place, because people's thoughts can tend to rush in when there's silence. And so Anastasia mentioned visualizations, and so visualizations are filling your mind with something relaxing, and there are a lot of them online, and I know those are on the resource list. And then relaxations, and those are bodily based practices, such as progressive muscle relaxation or breathing exercises, and there are those that are on the list too. You can get them as phone apps, you can listen to them on the computer or watch videos on the computer.
And usually somebody is guiding you through that, right?
Exactly, thank you. Yeah, so those have somebody guiding you through it, so you're listening to somebody else's voice rather than having your own thoughts fill the empty spaces. So if you don't have a meditation practice in place, then I would suggest that you start with either a visualization or relaxation practice. And so what you're going for is that physical sense of peace and calm, and that stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. It changes brain wiring, and it changes the endocrine system, which releases hormones and spurs emotions and can change mood. So there are very physical responses to these practices, and I would experiment until you can find something that supports you. And Anastasia is exactly right. It doesn't have to be long. 5 minutes is enough. It's about breaking the cycle and giving your brain and body a new experience.
Yes, Kara, thanks. It is. It's like a reset button. And in fact, I had that experience this week. Like so many people, I was trying to learn new technology and trying to figure out how to work remotely in ways that I never had before, and was, facing all kinds of challenges with things not working or as I had hoped, or just systems being overloaded. And I noticed that by the time I got to Tuesday, midday, I could just feel that the stress had been building, and I was feeling really skittish and jumpy, and I was having trouble concentrating. And I noticed that first, and then I decided I just had to take a break. And I went and did some yoga, which is something I do anyway, but I also put on some of my favorite gospel music and listened to that while I was doing my yoga. And it just, I wasn't even doing it for that long, 15, 20 minutes. And when I finished that, I just noticed I felt so different. I felt regrounded and calm and focused and able to get back to some productive work. So I went ahead and contacted our KSQD's very own Miss G, who is the programmer for the Heritage Gospel Uplift show. And I asked her to create a special playlist for our resource guide. So she has put together a playlist called Holding On Today, a gospel music playlist to lift your spirits. And that'll be available on the resource list for the show, and we can keep it up there for the next 2 weeks only. After that, we have to take it down because of licensing laws. But please, if you're interested, go there and check it out.
That's awesome. There's one more thing that I wanted to mention. To kind of bring it back to today, because I think we've been talking about general mental health tools that are helpful in any time, especially in a stressful time. But for me right now, reducing anxiety means putting away my phone, not looking at the news. I allow myself one article a day on coronavirus that I know is from a trusted source, and then I try not to look at anything else as much as possible. It's kind of hard with, social media and our phones being in front of our faces all the time. But it's been really important for me to not get sucked into that hole of what's going on, especially since we don't know a lot that's going on right now. We're only going to find out what was going on today, 2 weeks from now, or a month from now. So really not getting caught up in the information and misinformation that's out there, because that's hard to distinguish right now, has been really important for staying sane for me.
I'd like to say a little bit something about media that Anastasia was talking about.
Yeah, about managing media consumption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's been a lot said about managing consumption and limiting consumption, and that's all very much borne out by the research. Negative news can significantly change a person's mood. But there's another thing you can do besides limiting negative news, and that is countering it. There are positive news sites. There is a positive news podcast that's on the resource list that has some episodes about this virus.
What's that called, Kara? Can you just say so people can find it?
It's the Good News Podcast.
Oh, great.
It's called Good News Podcast about COVID-19 and other news. And there are also positive news sites online. So our brain has a negativity bias, and we look for the negative and we worry in order to protect ourselves. And we have to actively counter that so as not to fall into it. And one way you can do it is by seeking out good news and remembering that there are people doing positive things in the world, and that can help change your mood.
I'm really glad you brought that up, because we do need we need that balance.
I watch a lot of cat videos. Does that count?
Absolutely. Also puppies, they count too. What about just basic self-care during this time? What's the role of that, and why would it be particularly important now, do you think, Kara?
Well, self-care, especially for somebody with a pre-existing mental health issue, is extremely important because old patterns can be heightened. So self-care can help counter some of the old patterns. So supporting yourself through healthy eating, sleeping, exercise, mental health care, fun, meaningful activities every day, connecting activities every day. All of those things can help lessen symptoms of mental illness. I would like to say, if somebody is going into this with a pre-existing mental illness, I'd love for you to take a few minutes to think about your own warning signs. How will you know if you need to reach out for help? Maybe even put some what I call tripwires in place. if I'm thinking of self-harm, I will do X. I will call X. If it's been 3 days and I haven't contacted anyone or haven't gotten out of bed, I will do X. Whatever your particular problem signals are, know them and have, if possible, a very concrete way of knowing when you're decompensating and need to ask for help.
Yeah, and the other thing, Cara, that sometimes is really important is to write down the list of things that you can do that to get help before you're in that state, because it's really hard for people to think about where to get the help when they're in a bad state like that. So it's interesting to have it just bullet pointed out in order of priority. Like, I'm going to call this person first. I'm going to reach out to my therapist. I'm going to let a family member know, those kind of things.
Absolutely. And I encourage people to write down their plan, and there may be a different course of action for each worrisome symptom. So if you're thinking of hurting yourself, you may have one action wedded to it. If you haven't reached out and you're finding yourself depressed, there may be a different action wedded to it. So I would say if you can put concrete symptoms in place and a concrete action for each one, then you'll be in a good place for supporting yourself if there is a difficult period you need to get through.
So I just that makes me think that this would be a good time. I have some updated information from Cynthia Nolenberger, who is the supervisor for the mental health liaisons, who are mental health specialists that go out on call with the Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Department, Santa Cruz Police Department, and the Watsonville Police Department. And in speaking with her, she wanted people to know these recommendations. The current recommendation is that you not use emergency services unless absolutely necessary. The county has minimized staffing and are connecting with people via phone, text, and email. The mobile emergency response team, also known as Mert, that will often go out when there is some kind of life-threatening mental health emergency, is taking calls and responding to mental health crisis as appropriate. So it's not as fast, and it may not be in person. The mental health liaisons are still responding with law enforcement as needed. Emergency services are still operational, but 911 calls are being screened for and prioritized for urgency and COVID-19 symptoms. And she really wanted people to know that most private practice clinicians, that means your psychotherapists and possibly your psychiatrists, are doing phone or video chat and providing services that way. Those are also considered essential services. And so if you did need to be seen in person, that is something that may be addressed. Cara, you have something to say about that?
Yeah, and if you don't have a therapist already, there are many ways to get a therapist at this time. The first way, if you have insurance, is to call your insurer, and they'll give you a list of covered therapists. Most that I've talked to are doing online sessions. If you need a low-cost clinic, there are some that are listed in the resources. And give them a call. Some are not taking new clients while they're transitioning to video conferencing. Others have already transitioned and they are taking new clients.
You're tuned to listener-supported 90.7 FM KSQD, KSQD, Community Radio for the Monterey Bay. And this is State of Mind, Being Human and Living Well. We're also live streaming over the web at ksqd.org. I'm your host, Deborah Sloss, and I'm here talking with two guests, NAMI Santa Cruz Program Manager Anastasia Baboulevitch and licensed psychotherapist and trauma specialist Kara Bowman, and we're discussing mental health first aid for COVID-19, ways to take care of yourself and loved ones during these difficult shelter-in-place orders. I want to remind folks that all the resources we're talking about can be found at ksqd.org/state-of-mind/. And now a word from our underwriter.
KSQD thanks the Santa Cruz County chapter of NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, for supporting State of Mind. NAMI offers a helpline and online peer, family, and ally education and support groups. Visit NAMISCC.org. That's again, NAMISCC.org. Thank you, NAMI, Santa Cruz County, for supporting community radio, KSQD 90.7 FM.
Back to our interview. So, Anastasia, I want to turn to you because you are you have quite a bit of experience with advocacy. So, because it might take time for this to percolate down, what would you say to people around their efforts maybe to get a good supply of medications on hand? What can they do you think?
Yes. So along with being a good healthcare advocate, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners are already, because that's when you're a mental health consumer, you have to do a lot of your own research of, is this medication going to work for me, and fight for, having it and having the right medication and making sure you know what works for you and what doesn't. So that's, I think, a really important part of the fight to keep. There's also, I've seen through NAMI California's website, I believe, and I know you're going to put it in your resource list, but there's quite a few bills going around right now in terms of COVID-19 relief specifically for mental health consumers. So it's right now is a really good time to start advocating for those things. There's like a pre-written letter that's really great that you can just send out to your senator. And actually at any point with both with COVID-19 and with any other mental health advocacy, NAMI-SCC.org is a really good website for that. It's our state. And if anyone from other states is listening, you have a NAMI in your state as well. But it's a really good site for advocacy and just to see what is it that we should be fighting for right now and how do we do it. It'll tell you step by step, like for this, you should talk to your representative. For this, you can send a letter. Here's the phone number of your local policymaker. So right now could be a really good time to start advocating for mental health support during this time.
Yeah, and do you have any, that's really great. I'm glad you said that because they are trying right now to make sure that those people that are most vulnerable will be able to get, tested for the virus at no cost and be able to get into housing, to be safer and a whole variety of things that are written into that bill. So I do encourage people, it will be on the resource list to take a look at it. Mm-hmm. But I also was wondering if you had any sort of personal advocacy around people trying to talk to their doctors or the pharmacists about getting a supply of medication. What would you recommend, having lived that experience yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to, first and foremost, it's a fight. I definitely see a lot of efforts outcoming from the top of making this fight a little bit easier, but just knowing that, it's something that you're going to have to speak up for and really talk to your doctor. And if you're not satisfied with the services that your doctor is providing you, there's grievance procedures for every single health organization that exists. So figuring out what is that grievance procedure and taking the steps if you're not receiving competent care, or if you're not getting, what our laws say, if you can have longer prescriptions now, then you can have those longer prescriptions. So just knowing your rights, being educated about what is available to you right now, and speaking up for it, because you're going to have to do that for yourself. So it's really important to speak up and fight for your competent health care.
And if you can't do it, sometimes a loved one, they may well be able to talk to your doctor and or the pharmacist about what your needs are and help negotiate that for you.
I'd like to say one more thing about advocacy in a way that you may not have thought of it. Everything you said is wonderful, and it can be meaningful and empowering to advocate both for yourself in terms of medication and in terms of laws. Another way to be helpful is to be a support for another person, and you don't need to solve any of their problems. All you need to do is listen and care.
Really well said. So we're kind of coming to an end of our time. I do want to let our listeners know, if you've liked what you've heard from Kara today, she wrote a beautiful piece called How to Not Let the Coronavirus Steal Your Mental Health While You're at Home. And that also will be posted on our resource list. And I just want to come back to a couple things that you said, Kara, when you talked about be open to something good that could come out of, this situation. There are some articles on the resource list under the heading of greater good, which one of them specifically, for instance, is about how school closures might be able to strengthen your family and how you can use that opportunity to do that. I also had a client this week talk about how her experience of life in the world is generally moving too fast. And as things have slowed down, she's feeling increasingly grounded and realizing that she has to take a stronger stance for slowing their family life down to a pace that actually works for her, because she's been instead trying to keep up with a pace that hasn't been working for her. So there are some interesting, unexpected aspects of this that we all, if we keep a beginner's mind and an open mind, we can learn something new from all of this. I just want to ask if there's any important points that maybe we haven't had a chance to touch on yet that either of you want to make sure that our listeners have heard.
I'd like to say that whatever you're going through, it's normal for you, and it's understandable for you, and there is help.
Amen.
For today's In Your Voice segment, we have a poem by Richard Hendrick, a Capuchin Franciscan brother living in Ireland. The poem is called Lockdown.
Lockdown. Yes, there is fear. Yes, there is isolation. Yes, there is panic buying. Yes, there is sickness. Yes, there is even death. But they say that in Wuhan, after so many years of noise, you can hear the birds again. They say that after just a few weeks of quiet, the sky is no longer thick with fumes, but blue and grey and clear. They say that in the streets of Assisi, people are singing to each other across the empty squares, keeping their windows open so that those who are alone may hear the sounds of family around them. They say that a hotel in the west of Ireland is offering free meals and delivery to the housebound. Today, a young woman I know is busy spreading flyers with her number through the neighbourhood so that the elders may have someone to call on. Today, churches, synagogues, mosques and temples are preparing to welcome and shelter the homeless, the sick, the weary. All over the world, people are slowing down and reflecting. All over the world, people are looking at their neighbours in a new way. All over the world, people are waking up to a new reality, to how big we really are, to how little control we really have, to what really matters, to love. So we pray and we remember that, yes, there is fear, but there does not have to be hate. Yes, there is isolation, but there does not have to be loneliness. Yes, there is panic buying, but there does not have to be meanness. Yes, there is sickness, but there does not have to be disease of the soul. Yes, there is even death, but there can always be a rebirth of love. Wake to the choices you make as to how to live now. Today, breathe. Listen. Behind the factory noises of your panic, the birds are singing again. The sky is clearing. Spring is coming. And we are always encompassed by love. Open the windows of your soul, and though you may not be able to touch across the empty square, sing.
That was Lockdown, a poem by Richard Hendrick. This and other poems can be found on our resource page. I want to let folks know that there are many more resources included there than what we were able to talk about in the interview, including information about NAMI's online support groups for peers, which is those people living with mental illness, and for their family members, parents, and caregivers. There's also an extensive list of faith communities, Buddhist, Jewish, Christian, and others, that are now offering online services, meetings, and classes, as well as guides for parents about ways to support your children, and special resources put together for transgender youth, and so much more. So go to our website, ksqd.org, to the State of Mind program page and check that out. I'm your host, Deborah Sloss, and I want to say thank you again to my guests today, Anastasia Baboulevitch and Kara Bowman, and thanks to you for joining us here on State of Mind, Being Human and Living Well. To hear more conversations about mental health and wellness here on California's Central Coast, join me on the first Sunday of every month from 6 to 7 p.m. right here on KSQD 90.7 FM. You can also find all the podcast episodes of this show on our KSQD website by typing State of Mind in the search bar. Special thanks to Jeannie Baldzikowski for audio production and to Jennifer Young, who assists with research and outreach. And thanks to acoustic guitarist Adrian Legg for composing, performing, and donating the use of our theme music. And thank you to my colleagues and organizations in our community for contributing information for the resource list we have for this show. To hear your voice in one of our shows, call us at 831-824-4324 to comment on a previous show, ask a question for an upcoming show, or share a resource. Just leave a 1 to 3 minute message with your name and your comments or questions. Upcoming show topics include anxiety in teens, parenting teens with anxiety, forgiveness, and Santa Cruz County Mental Health Crisis Services. This is KSQD Santa Cruz. Just remember, 90.7 FM, KSQD, your ink spot on the dial. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back, everyone. This is the page that Deborah mentioned. If you go to ksquid.com and then type in State of Mind, there's a whole bunch of resources at the bottom of this episode's page. So you can check that out here.
Thank you. Thank you for managing all that too, Anastasia. She's a whiz with this.
You got it.
And also, I just wanted to let people know that if anything, if the show is of interest to you or you liked it, and you're willing to write a review either at ksqd.org or at iTunes or Google Play, that'll help other people actually find the show, and more people will be able to listen to it that way. So we have a big group. We weren't sure what size our group would be, and one of the things that we did want to do was sort of cull the group wisdom. So we talked about a lot of things in the show about how we were finding it was important to take care of ourselves in that first week. But since then, all of us have learned a lot. And so I was thinking maybe what we could do would be to just have a few people share some, what they've learned, and then we'll go on. We had some questions that were posed ahead of time. And Noelle, maybe you could let us know if questions are coming in now.
We do have a question that was from S. Williams for Anastasia. They would like to know if you could please repeat the 3 A's.
Oh, yes, I see that. Acceptance, awareness, and active change. Acceptance, awareness first, I guess. Acceptance and active change.
Great. So I can see, I guess, most people. I don't see that we have the raise hand feature up, do we?
I don't think we do.
Okay, so I can see people, so you might want to turn on your video if you have something to share and wave a hand, and I will call on people and then we can unmute you if you have. So the question is, what have you learned, you know, either about caring for yourself and your own mental health over these 9 weeks, or what have you learned about helping to support a loved one who has mental health challenges? Is anyone seeing anybody? Okay, I see Daniel raising his hand, and then I see Maria. We'll come to you after.
I learned a lot about being patient, listening with my brother. I used to not be as patient, and I'd always be quick to respond. And so, for whatever reason, I've just been a good listener now, and just kind of just a lot of it has to do. I mean, I should fill you. My brother has a mental illness with anxiety. He's got schizoaffective disorder and some bipolar. And but I've just learned through all of what I've been dealing with for the last 2 months with him to be a good listener, patient, and not respond right away. And then a lot of times it would dissolve without me with responding. Just so that's one of the things that I've really found for me helpful.
Thank you. I'm just going to say, if Anastasia, you or Kara want to take that comment and build on it in any way, please just jump in.
Absolutely. And just a formatting / technical thing real quick. I've put on my screen the gallery view up. So if you guys want to see all of our lovely faces, it's kind of cool to see everyone all at once. So if you just click, there should be a little button at the top right-hand corner that says gallery view. And if you click that, you can see a whole bunch of our faces. I think the spotlight video makes a little bit less sense for this portion. So yeah.
And then there's an arrow, a blue arrow that you can scroll and see other pages with everyone displayed too, because not everyone fits on one page.
Exactly. I really appreciate that comment, Daniel, about patience. That was something that I think it was really hard for my mom when I was growing up with and had mental health symptoms. She really wanted to fix things right away. She just wanted to make it better right then and there. And it's a whole process when it comes to mental health challenges. And for me, I have a lot of mood swings. So a lot of the times I have, I feel very anxious, I feel really irritable, and it passes because that's kind of the nature of mental illness a lot of the time. So I think that for her, learning that patience and knowing that, a lot of the times I just need to be listened to and loved, and things don't need to be fixed in that moment, that was a really big turning point for us as well.
Yeah, I appreciate both those comments, and we know that putting words on emotions actually helps the emotions dissolve and dissipate. So listening is not doing nothing. Listening is actually letting somebody integrate and move through their emotions, and is doing a great service, maybe the greatest service you can do to somebody who's got mood disorders. It doesn't actually impact mood as much with schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder, but with depression, bipolar, and anxiety, it does.
Thank you. So Maria, did I see that you had your hand up too? I'm unmuting your video. It looks like Maria Rodriguez, or am I getting that right?
I think that's our awesome NAMI volunteer, Teresa. I heard you speak, Teresa, but you're unmuted now.
Yeah, no, I just put my hand in my face.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I thought maybe that was a raised hand.
We did have some messages from Sally on the chat. If Sally would like to share.
And you can unmute yourself. There's a little microphone in the bottom left-hand corner of the Zoom window. And if you press that, you should be unmuted.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Really appreciate joining everyone. Yeah, I have a sister diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I'm just not sure how much she understands about what's going on. She's fortunate in that she lives in an assisted living center, so that kind of helps her stay on her medication. But she's, in the beginning, she was pretty agitated and, you know, wanted, she likes to go for walks, which is healing for her, but she couldn't leave the building. And so then she would become very hostile with the staff where she lived. And she just didn't quite understand what was going on. So I was just commenting to the person who put in the chat, having a topic on anastagnosia, and I never feel like I pronounced that correctly. But just like the other person who spoke, I just call her more often. I send her greeting cards, and I just listen. She's calmed down some now after all these weeks, but she's kind of confused about why they're making her stay indoors or stay inside.
You know, if you think about, especially when this first hit, how much information there was to integrate so quickly, so much change in our lives and so much confusing information and general collective stress floating in the milieu, you know, and I do think, I mean, schizophrenia is more and more being thought of as a intensive stress disorder. And you know, some people that are prone to it are like sponges, where they really absorb stress from others and stress in the atmosphere and stress around them. And so, you know, to me, it doesn't seem like a huge surprise that she would be overwhelmed and confused, maybe more than normal at that time. And that, you know, when you say she's seeming to be a little bit calmer as she's trying to integrate it, you know, I would assume it will take time.
Thank you, Deborah. I was really struck in the radio, the difference between when we did that and now, that uncertainty was the biggest destabilizing factor after a week. We didn't even know if doctors were seeing patients at that point. And so I think issues have changed somewhat. Yeah, and with schizophrenia, I mean, you know her far better than anyone else, but we tend to want to go in and talk to people logically and reason with them and give them facts. And if we can think of that, all of that logic as being up here, and ask ourselves the question, what is going on with this person down here? What do they need to know? What do they need to calm down? What are their fears? Then we can maybe not respond to all of this, the detailed clutter, but we can go right in, kind of a surgical strike to what might be most helpful for that person. So it's easy to get distracted by their words, and if we can listen on a lower level to their fears, we can sometimes be more helpful.
I agree, and I've been her support person for about 30 years. So even in non-COVID-19 times, I just try to empathize and say, that must be really scary. You know, I don't really try to engage or argue with what she thinks is true. Because that's what she believes, and you know, that's up to her. So I try to just really empathize and let her know that you know, she can talk to me about all of that stuff.
Great, thank you. I'm wondering, we have limited time left, and do we want to try to answer like some of those sort of update questions? So some of what we were thinking about is a couple of key questions. One would be what to do when you or your loved ones are not doing what you know would be helpful or supportive. So we've talked about a lot of things that are helpful and supportive, and sometimes we watch ourselves or our loved ones not choosing those things. And did I see a hand up? And then, so we were just thinking about maybe responding to that concept. And I would just say for myself, one of the things that I think is really important is to validate, very similar to what Sally was saying, you know, validate their experience. There's a reason that they're not doing what may be helpful to them at that time. And I really do like a dialectic approach that comes from DBT, or dialectical behavior therapy, which is you really validate their experience, their feelings, and at the same time holding a clear position that really only they can help themselves. I think we all have a secret wish that someone will come in and take care of us or take care of the problem for us, or, you know, we all have that to varying levels. And when people are highly distressed, that becomes even bigger, and it's harder, I think, to take those steps around taking care of ourselves. So sometimes a soft approach with just getting really curious about what are the barriers, and, you know, are they cognitive, are they physical, are they emotional? And another thing that gets in the way sometimes is people's ability to really love and have compassion for themselves. And so that's something I will try to model, is that compassion for myself and for them. And, you know, with the hope that in doing that, they can access some of that for themselves and feel that they therefore deserve to be able to take care of themselves and to do something that would be helpful or good. The other thing is just to keep in mind is that you know, when people are in a relapse cycle or a setback cycle, to really think of it as slow crawl out, as opposed to, you know, we'll just get these things on board and it'll be better tomorrow. And really having the faith, and I'll tell you honestly, as a parent, this is challenging, but having the faith that in those relapse cycles, people are learning something. They are learning something new about themselves, and sometimes the relapses are really important for them to gain understanding about what their own needs are, to accept the reality of their mental health challenges, like it didn't just go away, here it is again. Sometimes to really acknowledge and reach back out to those basic supports that maybe had helped them at one time before, like medication or regular therapy, or you know, supports on a campus, for example. There are lots of supports for students. Anyway, I want to invite Kara and Anastasia to add anything about when people aren't doing what they could be or might be able to do to help themselves. What would you add to that?
It's funny when you asked that, I interpreted it from like a peer perspective, because a lot of the times those of us who are living with mental health challenges, the loved ones around us, it might feel like they're not doing something that feels supportive to us, because like I know growing up, my mom had her own ideas of what it meant to, you know, be successful, be healthy, when what I needed to do was sleep for 3 months. And she had this idea of like, oh, you know, you need to just go out and pick yourself up by your bootstraps. So for that, and, you know, I wasn't really in the place to say, hey, here's what I'm feeling and here's what I'm going through. But I know now I really wish I had communicated very clearly why the things that they were doing were not supportive to me, and kind of what they were making me feel. So, you know, having my mom feel like, come into my room and be like, you just have to get up. I would have said, you know, when you do that, I feel like you don't trust me to know what's good for me, or you have your own ideas of what's right for me and aren't listening to what I need. So again, it complete for peers. It's very different, like whether or not you even have the bandwidth to be able to have that communication. But that's been something that's been really important in my life, to just be very clear on my feelings and the actions that precede those.
And I will say that's a skill that you can get better at. I mean, I've definitely seen my son, he'll actually say, not helpful. when when I'm trying really hard to be helpful.
Love that. Very clear, concise.
Yeah, Kara, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, and now I want to go in both directions, bounce off of both of you. Yeah, about that, I would say, yeah, it's great to be able to express where your need is coming from, because that people generally want to help us. And so if we can say, you know, it would support me, or it would be calming if you did this or didn't do that, it's really helpful, like Anastasia was saying, to help them connect to your need. And as specific as you can be. So, you know, if you can say, you know, if you please don't ask me about my therapy sessions, but feel free to ask me about my psychiatrist once a week, you know. So as specific as you can be is really helpful to other people. And then giving somebody a to-do rather than a not to do is helpful, because people want to help. Yeah. And then about what Deborah said, when we aren't doing things to support ourselves, it almost breaks my heart just to hear that put in language like that, because there's I mean, I put it in that language, but there's judgment in that language. So I'm always looking for like what the yes is behind the no. If somebody's not doing something, if they're not choosing something, then they are choosing something else. They might be choosing ease. They might be choosing relaxation. They might be choosing comfort, self-soothing. So if you can connect with why you're choosing what you're choosing, then that will open up more strategies to you. Often we just go to our old, you know, tried and true strategy, and we don't even think of any others. But if we can connect with our need first, then we can open to new strategies. And I would say other things that are effective: set the bar really low. I have a client who with depression, and she's actually working in a very, very stressful job right now over the hill. And she's decided if she can get up, get dressed, go to work 5 days a week and come home, she's doing great. So change your expectations of yourself, and all of a sudden you'll be succeeding instead of failing. You have different goals. So what supports you in a normal time? Anastasia said, you know, her yoga practice wasn't available. You know, a lot of things aren't available. And so just experimenting and finding what works. A lot of things, I don't like to stress things that are to do, because often we're already overwhelmed with things to do. So I like to stress ways to be. And my favorite is something Deborah touched on, which is we all have this inner critic that's, you know, trying to motivate us by beating us up constantly. That has to do with our biology and our scanning for what's wrong and trying to keep us safe. But we can actively grow our inner nurturer, or our inner compassionate person. So Deborah, by being a compassionate person for somebody else, you're giving them the language that they can use for themselves. So if we can think of it in terms of that, we all have these really developed, you know, well-developed inner critics. We've been working on those, you know, since we got language, really. So it's hard to shrink that. It's much easier to grow our inner compassionate voice. So what would you say to a friend? What would you say? You're your own caretaker. You're caretaker of your brain. How do you want to talk to yourself? How do you want to talk to yourself when you're making a choice that's not supportive? You know, like, oh, I wonder why I did that. I'm noticing I don't feel very good. I think I'd like to make a different choice tomorrow. You know, something understanding, caring. You know, so that's something you can do constantly, that you don't have to set aside time for and schedule in and then feel like a failure because you don't do it. So I like those kinds of being presence, being in the moment, checking in with your body and noticing you're okay, growing your inner compassionate voice. Those ways of being are very doable right now.
I wish we had time for more, but I'm watching and noticing that we agreed we'd finish up by 8:15, and I want to give Carol a chance. I think she has a few comments, and then Kara was going to lead us in a short mindfulness exercise that we do together. And then I think we're going to be at the end of our time. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us. I'm kind of blown away by how many people came out to share the evening with us. And I saw that Carol is inviting people to actively make suggestions for future speakers meetings. This is the first one ever, I think, done on Zoom. So we can take what we learned tonight and build on it going forward. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us.
Thank you. If there's any lingering questions, because I think I saw a couple of hands, I'm going to put my email in the chat box and you guys can feel free to email them, and I will connect with Deborah and Kara if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
If those questions are for you.
Sure.
So my email is going in the chat right now.
Okay. I just blown away by the wonderful things I learned tonight. It's been a fabulous program. Super deep, interesting, inspiring. I took notes, and I have so many ideas of ways to help myself, my loved ones, and I just couldn't be more grateful for the wisdom that you share, Deborah and Kara and Anastasia. You have no idea how much you're helping us all to learn. And Sally, your 30 years of partnering with your sister, and you teaching us about how to just be a friend. And it's tricky, all that we have to learn, but there's so many ways we can teach each other from experience. So I love this environment of Zoom. And I noticed that somebody wants to have the topic of lack of insight to one's self and anosognosia. So we'll think about ways to bring that along. We'll find other things that are available already on Zoom. I know one thing that's available is something recently done for special needs trusts. So if anybody wants to have that topic brought to us again, put that in your chat, because there's another speaker prepared for that. But there's so many topics you might want help with, and that I just love you all. I thank you, Deborah and Noelle and Anastasia and everyone who came. Kara, super wise people. Let's give them all a fake applause here, because it's a very wonderful evening, super wonderful evening. Thank you so much. And maybe you can chat your thoughts before you sign out. That's it for me. Good night, everybody. I love you all.
So Kara was going to lead us in a short mindfulness. It'll just be a few minutes, and encourage people to stay for that and take this opportunity to notice and be mindful about your own system and see if you notice any changes in you as you participate. Kara?
Yeah, so this is a three minutes about focused on self-compassion. So close your eyes if you'd like, and take a minute and let your muscles relax, knowing that your bones and your skeleton are holding you up effortlessly. Pay attention to your face and your head and your shoulders, and let the muscles soften. And then let all of the muscles in your body melt down toward the earth. Now we'll do a quick scan inside our bodies, noticing what's there. Whatever arises is fine, and we don't need to judge it or change it. So notice any sensations in your head, your throat, your chest, your stomach, and your belly. And say hello to whatever sensations you got in touch with. If you didn't get in touch with anything, that's fine. Just continue relaxing and scanning. Spend a minute just experiencing your sensation. Does it have a shape or a color? Is it hard or soft? Is it moving or static? What emotions does it have? Now we'll recognize the sensation as part of us. If you want to, you can put a gentle hand on wherever you're feeling something. You might say to yourself, I'm noticing that this feels however you're feeling. Or this is a moment of suffering. Or this is really hard right now. And then we'll remind ourselves of our common humanity. It's normal to feel this way. Of course I feel this way. Many people are going through similar things right now. There are other people in the world who feel exactly like I do. And finally, we'll bring some kindness to our pain by saying, may I be kind to myself. Or I'm so sorry. Or I'm here for you. And we'll just sit for a moment and feel our intention to treat ourselves with kindness. And if you felt any compassion, notice that the compassion you felt was generated by you. You have the ability to care for yourself. And when you're ready, notice your body in the room. And slowly move your hands and feet. And gently open your eyes.
Just lovely. Thank you, Kara. So I guess I just bid everyone a good night. Be kind to yourselves and everyone you love.
Night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you for doing this.
See you at the next one.
See you at the next one. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Take good care.
Great show.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Oh, I
Thank you.
see Emily there.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, leaders. You're amazing.
Thanks. Night.